Starting with number 1, the ones that were direct were these 3. Do we have questions on why those were or why the other ones were not? Which one? This one is direct because it can be rewritten as 1/2 x. Okay. Right, so 6 points did you get the ones correct and not the other ones. If you missed one or marked one of the other ones correct, you started missing points. Number 2, you had to find the direct variation equation. So use these numbers to find your k value. Divide 75 and 5. That should have given you 15. And then your direct variation equation, you just put that in. So 3 points. Did you solve for k correctly? Did you get the correct k value? Did you put it back into the direct variation equation? Questions on that one? For 3, they gave us different variables. You can still say this is like your y, this is like your x, but you need to keep your original variables. So your original equation would look like a equals kb. Or if you were writing it as k equals a times b, that would also be fine. To find our k value, we're going to take these two numbers and divide them. K equals negative 7 over negative 3, which is just 7 over 3. Some of you were putting that as a decimal. If it's a repeating decimal, leave it as a fraction. Then, if we put this back in our original, we have a equals 7 over 3b. We were looking for b, and we have a. So at this point, you could have done one of two things. Either divided both sides by 7 over 3. It won't look nice, but that will still work. Or you can multiply by taking this and flipping it to both sides. Some of you were trying to do both. You were dividing, but you flipped it, or you multiplied and you kept it the same. So don't do both, pick one or the other, so I'll show both. You can do it this way, or take this, flip it, and multiply that on both sides. Some of you were also putting it in the k equals and then solving it like that. That was also fine. But after you did whichever, you should have gotten 6. So that 5 points were, did you set up your original equation with your original variables? Did you solve for k and then simplify, leave it as a fraction? Did you solve for the missing variable and get the correct answer? Questions on that one? Four was similar. We are given original variables, g and m. You could still say g is like your y, m is like your x, but when you write your equation, it needs to have g and m, not y and x. So g equals km would be our original equation. Use the numbers given, so 200 miles would be like our x or our m. The 9 gallons would be like our y or our g. Use those numbers to find k. So that should be 9 over 200. So whether you left it like that or put it as a decimal, either was fine. Some of you were missing the 0 and put 0.45 instead of 0.045, so be careful with that. Then we're looking for gallons, and we're given miles. So we can put in our K value and our number of miles. Multiply those together. And then you could have either put 14.175, 14.18, 14.2. Any of those were acceptable. Some of you are putting 14 point whatever G. G doesn't label this. Make sure you're actually putting gallons. So then the 5 points were similar. Set up your original equation. Get your K value. I'm sorry, this was 4. Solve for G, and then your final answer. Questions on that one? If you did not get some of these, you should be writing them down so you don't make the same mistakes next time. For number 5, we know these two numbers are important. In the next piece, it says the interest, so that would be like your Y, varies directly with the amount deposited, that'd be your X. So your original equation, if you change the variables, if you left them the same, doesn't matter, still put Y equals KX. Use the numbers given to find your K. So that would be 61.5 over 1,500. And then 0.041 was your answer for K. You did need to simplify this and not leave this like this because we have a decimal inside of a fraction. 0.041 is what that should be. Then you could use that. It's looking for the same amount of time, interest-wise, if she had 2,000 in her account. So putting our 0.041 and our 2,000 in, we would be multiplying those two together. To get 82. So the 6 points here were, did you define your variables? And then set up your original equation, solve for K, simplify, solve for Y, then your final answer. Questions on that one? Okay, go on to the next page. The ones that were inverse were only these two. I'm going to talk about one of them. Some of you marked this one. If you marked that, I said it was okay. Really, because X is in the denominator, so I see how you were seeing that. But it really shouldn't have been because of this plus 2. So if you marked it as 1, I gave you that point. If you didn't, then you got it anyway. So this one was not, but these two were. Anyone have questions on why those were / the others were not? So this is similar to our K equation, or if you solved it for Y, it would be the same. So either or. You couldn't graph it as is, you'd have to solve it, and then you could graph it. But if you graphed it, it would make that hyperbola shape, and it would be around 0. It doesn't have to be value. For number 7, it wanted the inverse variation equation, so it gave you X and Y. Multiply those to find K. and then put that number into your equation. Y equals 10 over x. So again, 3 points. Did you solve for k correctly, get the correct k value, and put it in the equation correctly? Eight, you had to find your k value. You're again given x and y, so you don't need to put the original equation. You can if you want. But we need to multiply x and y together to get k. Because when you multiply them, you get a repeating set of decimals, leave it as a fraction. Again, some of you were putting this back into the k equals, which was fine, or the y equals, which is also fine, either or. So the y equals would look like this. Put in 9.1 for your y. If you were doing it like this, some of you were trying to multiply 13/7 on both sides, but that wouldn't get x out of the denominator. So you have to multiply by x first. And then divide by 9.1. So I'll go back. So if you put it in, and I know it's up here, but alpha y equals, and then 13 over 7, come out of it, and then divide, you would get that number. So 0.2, 0.204, 0.2041, 1. Whatever, however many decimals you wanted, as long as you rounded correctly, that was your answer. Questions on that one? So that one was worth 5. 4. Yeah, so the 4 was solving for k, getting the correct k value, and then solving for the variable, getting the correct answer. Okay. The next one is very similar to 7. It gives you a point, that's your x, y. Find your k by multiplying them together. And then put that back in your equation. For 10 and 11 are very similar to the points on the first page. So we're given variables b and p, that would be like your y and x, but use the original variables. So your original equation would be b equals k over p. Use the numbers given to solve for k, 13 and 27. Multiply those together. You should have gotten 351. Then in the next part, it's asking for the volume when the pressure is 9 pounds. So that would go in your denominator. And you would get 39. Our volume is in cubic feet, so that would be your label. Okay, so original equation, solving for k, k value, solving for v, v value, and label. Questions on that one? And then the last one does not have variables again, so make up whatever you want or call them y and x. So the number of revolutions is your y, the radius is your x. We have 12-inch radius, so that's x, 100 revolutions, that's y. Use those to find k by multiplying them together. Then it's asking for number of revolutions, so we're looking for y. Oh, I didn't write my original, sorry. It's asking for y when we have x, so y equals 1200 over 15. And 80, yes.
Question, you have to write the original equation that you depends on that.
For these, yes. You need the original equation, yes. Especially if the variables are not the same. Okay, so the 6 points here, we're defining your variables and then everything else. Defining your variables, original equation, solving for k, k value, solving for y, y value. There are questions on that one. And then on the last page. The first 4 were just setting up equations. So y varies jointly as m and n. All of these should have had some k in there. Y equals varies jointly. All the variables are next to each other. K, m, n. 13, a varies inversely as b. So a equals k over b. And directly as c. C can either be next to it or in the numerator. If you put c in the denominator, that was incorrect. So that one was worth 2 points. Did you do the inversely correctly and the directly correctly? W varies inversely, so we're dividing k and the square root of b. And then m varies jointly, so m equals k and o, and inversely as b. So that one was also worth 2 points. Did you do the jointly and inversely correctly? Questions on those? Okay. As you were doing these other ones, you should have noticed that the 4 equations you just set up, one of those would have helped you set up each of these. So for 16, C varies jointly as A and T. That is very much like 12. So C equals KAT is how we would set that up. Put in all of your numbers to find K. So 20 equals K times 1 times 5. And then start to solve for K. So 20 equals K times 5. Divide both sides by 5. So K equals 4. After you have that, then you can put that in with your other numbers and find the missing variable, which was T. So 16 equals 4 times 2 times T. Multiply those and solve for T. So 16 equals 8T. Divide both sides by 8. T should have been 2. So the 5 points were setting up your equation, solving for K, getting K, solving for T, getting T. Questions on that one? A varies inversely as B and directly as C. That wording is just like 13, so it would have been set up exactly the same way. Either or. This one was one more point because of the setup of the equation, making sure both pieces were correct. So then you could put your numbers in. A is 1/2. You don't know K. You know C is 2. I'm going to use this one. And B is 56. And then how you chose to do this, you had different options. You could either start multiplying both sides by 56, divide it by 2. You could simplify this part first, which is what I'm going to do. That's 1K over 28. And then I'm going to cross multiply. So 1 times 28 and 2K. Divide both sides by 2. So 14 was K. And then we put that back in to find B. Okay, so then we had, and I'm running out of space. A was 14. K was 14. C was 1. And we don't know B. So to get B by itself, we wouldn't multiply by 14, we'd multiply by B on both sides. And then divide. B should have been 1. So some of you put C in the denominator, and that really threw everything else off. So you ended up with a way different answer. Questions on that one? $18 will be set up similarly to 14, but square instead of square root. So B varies inversely. B equals K over B squared. If you put square root, that threw everything else off. And then B is 2 when B is 5. 5 squared is 25. And you could multiply both sides by 25. So some of you got to this point. It was the solving for V that got us a little confused. So I'm going to do that, and then we may not have time to do 19 until we get back. That's fine. I'm going to do that here because I don't have space. Right? So then we have B is 4, K is 50, we don't know B. To get it out of the denominator, multiply both sides by B squared. Divide both sides by 4. And then take the square root of that number. So it's up here. The square root of 12.5 would be 3.54. Pick however many decimals we want. Questions on that one? So when we get back, we'll do 19 really fast before you take your test. I will say that you may not have time to finish it all today. That's fine. Wednesday is our flex day, so do as much as you can. Work as long as you can. At like the 10-minute left mark, then when you feel like you're not going to finish, then we can talk about you finishing it on Wednesday. But work until then. Don't have time to start your test. Okay, for this last one, it says the cost C for a deck varies jointly, so it's going to look very similar to 16 or 12. So C equals K times, you can use W and L for width and length. You can use X and Y and Z, doesn't matter. Then it says if a deck costs $1,200 when the width is 12 and the length is 20. So you would put those numbers in and start to solve for K. So multiply 12 and 20 together to get 240. Divide both sides by 240. I think that was 5. After you get your K value, look at the numbers given. Deck that's 10 feet wide, 10 feet long. We don't know the cost, so we're looking for C. You put in your K and your width and your length, and multiply those all together. 500 should have been your final answer. So again, 5 points. Set up your original equation. Solve for K. K answer. Solve for C. C answer. Questions on that? Okay, do we have any other general specific questions before you guys take your test? Need me to go back, re-explain something? 11. Elijah, which one were you going to say?
So I'm doing on the first part.
Okay.
Product coordination.
So when you finish this, let me know. Did you have a question about something in 11?
I just wanted to see.
Okay. And then number 3, what about it?
For the, so like if it repeats, you have to like
Leave it as a fraction. Okay. Any other general specific questions? Allison.
Does
Inversely means divide, yes. Jointly, yes, means to multiply the variables together. Anything else? Alright, go ahead and put your phones in a calculator pocket, clear off your desk.